Good morning. Welcome back. You're still watching Daybreak on the 7th day of October 2024, just the day before the National Assembly considers the motion against Deputy President Gachagua to impeach him on about 11 grounds. We're here to talk about that, the process itself, the grounds themselves, and what would be the threshold. And of course, in studio, I have Fred Okango, who is Political Affairs Secretary from KANU. Good morning, Fred.
Good morning, Sam.
Gachagua Njiru, Wakili.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning, Sam.
Well, this is Diana Gishengo, also Wakili, but also the National Coordinator of the Institute of Social Accountability. Good morning.
Good morning.
And Juan Ogola is an advocate of the High Court. Good morning.
Steve Ogola, not Juan Ogola. Good morning, Sam. Thank you.
Good to see you. And of course, so the papers, Ruto locks out his friends. That's what the Standard is saying. Rattled by recent political events in the country, President William Ruto, previously an open and affable leader, is tightening control, enforcing strict access protocols and reshuffling long-serving staff allies. Allies need permission to see him. And you say that all this is happening as Gachagua pleads for forgiveness, and you have heard some of those voices in the news. We'll be having some of them later on. Gachagua's last options, the DP and his allies fancy his chances are better at the sober and more objective Senate. This is on the Daily Nation, and he's saying, please forgive me. DP Gachagua yesterday made an impassioned plea for forgiveness, even as his team sought ways of fighting the impeachment motion against him. With MPs expected to vote on the matter tomorrow, will President Ruto play his hand and save his embattled deputy president? And allow me to begin with you, Wakili Gachagua Njiru.
Yeah.
Even before we get to the grounds and, of course, the sentiments of the deputy president yesterday. I mean, what happened that you're now, at this point, look at the papers, what they're saying,
yes,
seeking forgiveness?
You're asking me to comment on what happened, that the DP is not seeking forgiveness.
Yeah.
We must first of all agree that impeachment is a political process. Mm-hmm. There is very, very legal aspects involved in it, most especially when you go to the National Assembly and the Senate. Mm-hmm. And this I'm speaking from experience of the several impeachments that I have held, that facts and law plays a very minimal role when it goes to the members of parliament. Mm-hmm. And of course, this has been follow up to what the various impeachments that have happened in America. Sometimes the Supreme Court of America also indicated that impeachment is a political process. Mm-hmm. So politicians will play their role out there. They will maneuver in a manner that will assist them deal with the particular challenge. Mm-hmm. And I believe that's where the DP was coming from. Because he's a politician, he's dealing with his fellow politicians. It will only mutate into a legal issue when the matter gets to the judiciary or to courts.
Right.
That's when now we're able to square out what the MPs or the senators were doing vis-a-vis what the law requires. But as at now, we have engaged ourselves into a perpetual, fully Frenched political process, mm-hmm. and the politicians can address it in a manner that is so deemed fit to mm-hmm. address a political question. In the case of Wambora, equally, Justice Vishram retired, Justice Odek, may Lord rest his soul in eternal peace, and the current Chief Justice, mm-hmm. In the Civil Appeal number 21 of 2014, they actually indicated it, that impeachment is purely a political process, and that it only mutate into a legal one when the matter gets in the judiciary. Mm-hmm. So they advised that if you're able to square it in the political arena, it would be better for you to administrate it. And therefore, I think that is where the DP was coming from.
So squaring it out politically, what does that entail?
It entails you perhaps, even if you think and evaluate yourself and think perhaps something had gone wrong, you can take the steps and the direction that it took yesterday. It can involve yourself going out to persuade the members of parliament to drop the motion. It can involve even you yourself going to alter the number in parliament, if you can so wish, if you're able to do so. Because you must remember that a vote will be cast. So if you're able to persuade members of parliament through your political persuasions to cast a vote in your favor, you, the person facing the impeachment, then you'll be saved. So purely it will be a political process as from tomorrow all the way to the Senate.
Fred, is it...
But that does not mean that you should not prepare your defense in a manner that persuades any other institutions that will pick up from where the Senate and the National Assembly will leave it.
Isn't that a sign of you don't have confidence that you will succeed in Parliament?
No. Remember, we are in a democracy. And in this democracy, we have established various institutions. All these institutions works in an equilibrium of checks and balances, to the extent that Parliament, maybe the arbitrariness of Parliament will be checked by the judiciary, by the courts.
Okay, all right.
So you must be ready for that other future engagements, all the way from day one at the inception.
Fred, is it too late for political persuasion? I saw you at the Bombers of Kenya public participation session, and we'll talk about that shortly. But isn't it too late for such sort of persuasion?
Thank you, Sam. Well, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, Gachagua, has learned that the chances of him being impeached are very high. Because if you look at the number of members of parliament that signed for this impeachment, there were 291. And the threshold in the National Assembly, so that they can make a resolution, or rather so that motion can be allowed, is 117. And even if tomorrow they were to make a resolution that that process should proceed to the trial house, that the Senate, assuming those numbers remain the same sum, that threshold will be achieved. I looked at the Deputy President yesterday. There are two things that happened. The Deputy President decided to worship at his current home, at the national altar. He was emotional and he looked shaken. The President decided to worship at his home church, AIC Mlimani. It was very brief and he never talked of this issue like before. He has not done so. Now, as Wakil Ndegwa said, this process, in my view, it's not only political, but also legal. And I think the Deputy President, before yesterday, had three options. He had one option of resigning after he had realized that this motion will proceed. He had an option of apologizing. And between today and tomorrow, he still has an option of resigning to save himself. But as you put it, in my view, if you go through the motion of impeachment, the grounds, what we'd call maybe charges, the move of that motion has attached what he calls or refers to evidence. And when the members of parliament were putting their signatures, it appears they are already convinced that by appending their signature on this motion, they are convinced that the Deputy President should go home, based on the charges. I want to divorce myself from the merits and demerits, and also I want to divorce myself from the politics of it, because it's also political, so that I am very objective and professional about this. I think, as things stand today, the Deputy President has a chance tomorrow to appear before the National Assembly and give his side of the story. That, in essence, will help him build a case, if at all this matter will proceed to the courts. Number two, in the public court, because you have talked about public participation, when you listen to the public participation and when you watched, you would notice that there were those who were for his impeachment and those who were against, and then there are those who are for the both to be impeached. So in the public court, again, when he appears before National Assembly, again, he shall have prepared the public and give his story for those who believe that he should not. And lastly, the Deputy President, Honorable Rigathi Gachagua, has made a lot of attempts to put himself in a situation that makes him a victim. So today, with all the issues that are happening in this country, he appears to be somebody who is being victimized and somebody who is blameless. However, I would want to urge the public and even the professionals out there to leave this matter to take its course, because he has also lined up lawyers. I'm told 20 of them. We have also seen the other side who has witnesses. So we are likely to see a situation where the impeachment process will proceed, but if it was not to proceed, then between today and tomorrow morning, the deputy president might want to resign.
You think so? Okay, all right. Let's listen to the deputy president as he spoke yesterday. This is the latest of his public utterances. Then we can talk about it.
So my brother, President William Ruto, if in our zeal to work, I have wronged you, please find it in your heart to forgive me. To our members of parliament, if in the course of duty, through our utterances and actions, we have in one way or another upset you, all wronged you, find it in your heart to forgive me. If my spouse, in our duties for the boy child and our program, has wronged you in any way, find it in your heart to forgive her.
Now, Diana, if, quite conditional, but is seeking forgiveness a sign of admission that indeed you're wrong?
I'm not very good with things that turn English and then things that are done in church. This is politics. That apology, where it was given, it feels more like the deputy president coming to play, like Ndegwa has said, into the political gallery. Now, oftentimes when you offer an apology, there is that presumption that you could have been accused, but immediately thereafter he goes on to defend himself of all against everything that he's been accused of. Okay? But let's just think about it. The ground for impeachment is gross violation of the Constitution, criminalities. Should that be the way to go? Should the entire political class come and apologize to us before altars and we forget? Have we changed the bar? After all those signatures were collected, and then the public set their own motion. They were brought for the motion for impeachment. When the motion was taken to the public, they wondered, what is this that you're telling us? The president has violated the Constitution. Where is his motion? People who were in cabinet before violated the Constitution. They went before the same parliament. You forgot. You forgot the standards that you're now treating us to. So I would take the apology as politics, and mine is to urge, I've had people say, let the lawyers continue. People of Kenya, stay woke. Let us continue demanding what we deserve as a country, which is anybody who violates and continues to mock us with gross violation of the Constitution needs to vacate office at all levels, whether it is the presidency, gubernatorial, parliament, everywhere. They just do not deserve to be our leaders.
Wakili Steve, what should you do with that apology? Because he's apologizing to the president, to the members of parliament, but also to Kenyans. What should that mean on the eve of the debate of the motion?
Thank you, Sam. In terms of conceptual clarity, that apology is an express admission of guilt.
That's true.
So we can't debate it. We cannot debate the quality of the apology in a manner that takes us from the substratum of the issue. Mr. Gachagua has been accused of gross violation of the Constitution, gross misconduct, and reasonable suspicion of having committed serious offenses, including grand corruption. If he is apologizing in the context of those pending charges against him, we must take that apology for what it means. It's an admission of guilt. And therefore, Mr. Gachagua then stands guilty as charged. What are the consequences of that express admission, Sam? And I can assure you that apology will find its way in court against him. Now, the impeachment process, the Supreme Court has clarified, is both a political and a legal process. In terms of political implications, DP Gachagua is being accused of insubordination. To that extent, if the president uses his discretion to accept the apology, then he may get off the hook on that limb alone. Insubordination in terms of contradicting the president on very important matters that go to the heart of Kenya Kwanza administration. He's opposed Adani, the takeover. He has contradicted the national security intelligence agencies like NIS. I think some of his utterances that run counterproductive to government agenda amounts to insubordination 101. And perhaps for that apology to have effect to that limited political context, it would have made sense for joint appearance with the president. But even so, Sam, that admission of guilt does not cover him from the legal consequences. Remember, on the legal threshold, Governor DP Gachagua is being accused of violation of the Constitution and gross misconduct. He is on record, Sam, at the very minimum as a reckless ethnic kingpin who projects unashamedly the impression that he's a gatekeeper for Mount Kenya interests. At worst, he's a dangerous politician that should not be holding public office or state office. Article 131 of the Constitution identifies the presidency, which constitutes of the president and the deputy president, as a symbol of national unity. So I can pull the Constitution and read to you Article 131 in express language, and then contradistinguish that with Gachagua's utterances. Article 131, Sam, sub-article 2. Paragraph C. Authority of the president, and this must be read to mean the authority of the deputy president as well, the president shall promote and enhance the unity of the nation. The presidency consists of the president and the deputy president. It is on record, Sam. And judges also live in this country. They watch news. Gachagua has repeatedly antagonized the rest of the country that did not vote for this government. He has said, this is a government by shares. I don't know what kind of apology would mitigate that. In fact, talking of mitigation, you have to be convicted first. Then you mitigate, then you are sentenced. So we accept his advance apology, but we will use it in mitigation, which means Gachagua must be impeached on the threshold and on the merit, having tried so hard with limited success to antagonize the country, divided along ethnic groups' lines, having admitted that this is a government of shareholding, and he told people, if you did not vote for this administration, you have another chance in 2027 to vote for it to be able to access government services. In essence, he has dismantled the architectural design that underpins our democracy, that after the election, service is for all.
Right.
So we will not accept that apology, and even if we accept it, it cannot save him from the consequences that must follow.
There's something you've said, that he is guilty of insubordination because he has contradicted, he has opposed Adani. What do you mean?
I mean, Sam, the deputy president has made utterances that run contrary. You even wonder whether the president and the deputy president sit in the cabinet. He has made utterances, very serious utterances, that looked at in totality are counterproductive to Kenya Kwanza agenda. Among them, when the president is proposing and pushing for a broad-based government, he has retreated back to his backyard and said, we did not vote for Raila Odinga, and now he's in government. And used that as a basis to ring out to Uhuru Kenyatta. When the president is trying to create a framework that co-opts everyone, and you make statements that undermine that, there is only one way to look at it, insubordination.
Okay.
But I leave that...
That's fine, Wakili. You have not answered my question because you were very particular on Adani, but I gave you another chance after the break. But Wakili, you wanted to...
Yes, Sam. I am very perplexed when I listen to submissions from Steve and equally from Okanga. I'm perplexed in the sense that for them, they believe that His Excellency Deputy President is guilty. I'm more perplexed when I hear an advocate saying that an apology amounts to an admission of guilt. I am perplexed in the sense that I do not understand whether His Excellency has no right of a fair hearing before any institution that has been constituted by the Constitution. I am more at a loss, especially when I hear him not be able to substantiate how the Deputy President contradicted the President on the question of Adani. The question of Adani is still a very serious and hot issue, not exclusively being held by the Deputy President, but is an issue for the entire country. And the fact that people have now been subsumed in the question of the impeachment is not a fact that we have forgotten that our airport is just about to go for the next 30 years without having to touch it, without having to lose control of that airport. Number two, when I hear Steve advancing a choreographed theory trying to label the Deputy President as an ethnicist, I am at a loss when I hear him reading Article 131 and he fails to read the preamble to the Constitution. The preamble to the Constitution says, Sam, that proud of ethnic, cultural, and religious diversity, and determined to live in peace and unity as one indivisible sovereign nation. So the preamble to our Constitution has first of all appreciated our ethnic diversities. Number two, if you look at Article 7 of the Constitution, which the proponents of this motion are failing to look at, one of the provisions is it has appreciated two national languages, Kiswahili and English. But it also says that the state shall promote and protect diversity of languages of people of the Republic of Kenya.
Which article is that again?
That is Article 7. Promoting the diversities of our languages. Kikuyu being one of the languages.
That's a chaotic reading.
Kamba being... Let me read.
Yeah.
You'll have your interpretation of what Article 7 says. This is my interpretation, which you exclusively refuse to refer to. Kamba is a language. Kikuyu is a language. Luo is a language. And any other diversities. So how can you crucify a man for doing what the Constitution says? Number two, when the Deputy President said that this country is a shareholding, now the people's pushing for his impeachment were actually in jubilation. The entire UDA was in jubilation. They were appreciating those aspects. But nobody spoke at that particular time. Now, because they have fallen out with the Deputy President, he has now become the black sheep. Let me ask you, as I sum up. We have seen the kind of publications showing how government jobs were allotted, how particular ethnic groups were afforded unfair and undue advantage as against others. I have not heard Steve address those issues.
Okay.
How parastatal jobs were given, how departmental jobs were given. He has not addressed that issue. Finally, as I pen off, he's saying that he is involved in issues of corruption. He's involved in issues of reasonable suspicion of committing crimes. And then he says that the Deputy President should admit, we have an explanation of how those things are or are not associated with the Deputy President, a matter that I cannot discuss here. But let me yet ask you, was this Parliament also not involved in the vetting of the CAS Kindiki just about a month ago? At the time of his declaration in 2023, Kindiki's wealth stood at 544 million. Last month, or 2 months ago during his vetting, it stood at 694 million, an increment of 150 million. Was he asked to substantiate? Was it not let pass to go? Doesn't the law speaks about equality before the law and equal protection before the law? Doesn't Steve understand this? Number three, who declares?
Sorry, Ndegwa, let's take a break because you're getting into matters of the grounds, which
yes,
I wanted us to handle after the break. No,
okay.
I'll get back to you after the break because you have so much to talk about from the 11 grounds, but also the circumstances that the Deputy President finds himself in, and as well as the public participation exercise that was on Friday and Saturday. Stay tuned. Send in your questions of what you want to know about especially on the process and what the threshold should be. You're back in a moment.